shit, and
I think anyone can join.
pretty sure Twitter's just stupid.
I'll DM you. Hold on.
DM. You slide into my DMs.
Yeah. Pretty sure Yellow Flash started it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I guess I should mute myself when I need to cough now.
That's up to you. I'm slightly indifferent. It would probably be nice for the audience, though.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
What was I looking at?
I don't even know. Hopefully that shit just shows up in my normal feed, because I don't know if I'm ever going to go into like the community tab or anything like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Twitter, did you see that? Let's see if I can find it. That Jack Dorsey might actually be on a redemption arc.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Well,
crazy.
I mean, but you know, he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was a part of." You know, basically putting corporations in charge of
the internet.
What was it?
I have the actual tweet in front of me. It's like the days of Usenet, IRC, the web, even email with PGP were amazing. Centralizing discovery and identity into corporations really damaged the internet. I realize I'm partially to blame and regret it.
Partially. Yeah, I mean, I guess.
Well, he is partially. He's
not
only
the only
one of several. And the users are equally to blame, because users are what propped up these sites to become big corporations in the first place.
Yeah. But he's one of the ones that definitely let his company engage in severe censorship control. Like he could have.
I think he was mostly ignorant to what was going on. especially when you look at the way that he personally tweeted. I think he was more of just like that CEO figurehead person. But that is still partial blame because he could have had a more active role to make sure shit like that wasn't going on.
Yeah. Did you see his interview with Tim Pool, though?
I did, yeah.
Where it was just like, Tim is, I kind of thought Tim didn't bring it up strongly enough.
Yeah.
But he kind of said to him, like, dude, you're censoring people, and his stupid HR person was there.
Yeah, you're talking about the one on Joe Rogan, right? With him, Tim Pool, and the lawyer, or the more recent one?
I thought it was the earlier one. I thought it was just him. Was it Joe Rogan? I thought it was.
Yeah. Pool. So there was a discussion with him and Joe Rogan on one side. It was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and Jack and his Twitter's lawyer on the other side. The lady, yeah. And one of the reasons Joe brought Tim on there is because Tim was very vocal about this stuff, and he had a lot of the research. So we wanted somebody that actually had like sources on hand that he could pull up and talk and everything like that. And the way it seemed, though, is even talking about it, Jack seemed pretty ignorant to most of what was going on, especially because his lawyer was the one that had to talk about most of this stuff.
Yeah. But I mean, when they said the one thing, when they said something like, well, so are you saying there shouldn't be any rules? I would have said, yeah, exactly. No censorship. Stop censoring people.
Yeah. Like the only rule should really be what the law is in the U.S. Where your site is hosted. That's
and Tim kind of prevaricated and hemmed and hawed about it. But I would have said, the only rules should literally be the law. If somebody breaks, even then, if someone breaks the law, report them to the police because you're not the police. And if somebody just says, because frankly, if you think something is misinformation or whatever, well, there's nothing illegal about that.
Yeah, no, I'm also not against a site deciding they don't want known felons on their platform. Like after a case or something's happened, if you want to do that, like that's perfectly fine. Because there's good reason to assume in some cases that known felons shouldn't be on your platform, especially if it's something related to the risk of minors, right? And that's fine. But until a case, like you have to presume people are innocent until proven guilty. So you shouldn't even do something like that until a court case has been resolved.
But I mean, banning the president of the United States.
Yeah, like that's
on
just
Twitter. That's ludicrous. They should reinstate. Reinstate Alex Jones.
They should, but he's not even the CEO anymore. He's just like a partial owner, as like being one of the founders.
Should reinstate Milo.
Yeah. I don't know. He's been on a weird arc recently. If you look at his tweets, even retweeting a lot of Elon Musk, who people want Musk to buy Twitter. I think they should just those two should get together and they should make a decentralized replacement to Twitter. Like if he really regrets the way things are, make something federated like Mastodon, or I don't know, maybe make some type of interconnected chat like an IRC that can have like a federated feed, but then you still have your small communities and everything like that. I don't know. There's options of rewinding the clock while still going forward, right? Like we can do both at the same time on the internet.
This is hard to. It's hard to build something that's going to be going to get as much market penetration as Twitter. It's just
well, it's the centralization that gives Twitter the market penetration, right? It's a great ad place, so all corporations want to funnel into it. If you try to make a competitor to it where you can isolate yourself into smaller communities, well, corporations don't want that. That's a horrible way to advertise to people.
Yeah. But that's kind of the problem with a lot of these competitors, is that they don't have part of the fun of Twitter is being able to argue with crazy people.
Yes.
And if the crazy people don't come over to, Getter or Truth Social or whatever, then, then it's just echo chambers.
That is why our federated network needs to have a Thunderdome community, where everybody just comes together to argue if they want to argue.
Yeah.
That would be great. Like, just welcome to the... That should just be the name. We'll just steal it from Mad Max. We'll just call the name of our network the Thunderdome. Welcome to the Thunderdome. Post at your pleasure for as long as that lasts. The whole point is to try to get people to leave because, you know, it's everyone enters, only one survives. So anyway, welcome to the Vomitorium number 135. As always, I am your host, The Metal, and joining me is my co-host, Marsupial Gamer. How you doing today?
Pretty good, pretty good.
That's good.
You know, I'm still hoarse. I don't know. I don't understand.
I don't know. Maybe you're just slowly evolving into a horse.
Speaking of which, did you see the April Fool's Day Among Us?
No,
thing?
On April Fool's Day, I just basically turn off social media for the most part. Maybe I'll make a post like I did this year.
Yeah.
I think the internet has like widely ruined April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, it wasn't fake. They actually basically on Among Us, they turned all the characters into horses. So basically you could play as a horse.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the point of that was, but it was silly. And
now, stuff like that's pretty good. Because
only for
April
one day.
Fool's is supposed to be about practical jokes, not like people changing their username to something stupid or people lying on the internet because lying is apparently a practical joke now.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb.
And you know it's April Fool's, so like if that's what it becomes, then you know just to not trust anything you see on that day. Well, practical jokes catch people by surprise. You could try to avoid them, they hit you anyway, which is fine in a video game. You're playing a game, and all of a sudden the game you booted up is different because people can do like hot fixes and live updates and stuff like that. League of Legends did something like that. It was pretty funny. Every time you recalled, it changed your model to like one of the random enemies on the map. Like maybe you might be the blue buff or something like that for just like a minute or two before you got back to lane. It was a pretty funny thing.
They did that this year?
Yeah. And they hot fixed it in while most people were asleep. The patch came really fast. Like you wouldn't even notice you were patching unless you were like, I guess, a really, really bad connection and it took forever. But it was like a megabyte of information, and every single time you recalled back to base, instead of the character you were, you would be like the frog in the middle of the woods that you have to kill for gold and stuff like that, or maybe you might be the siege minion that goes down the lane with you. It was pretty cool.
Sounds neat.
Yeah, but that's how you need to handle April Fools. You gotta prank people. You gotta punk them. You can't let them know what's coming.
Yeah, I didn't see anything particularly memorable this year. Just a bunch of silly crap. I think the CEO of the Babylon Bee said he was stepping down. It's like, no, you're not. Okay, haha.
Yeah.
To think about what he did.
Well, there was the other one was they put up a satire article saying, or a satire of their satire, so like double meta-ironic, saying that, what was the person's name that they said was Man of the Year? It was actually a biological woman this entire time.
No, okay.
Yeah, that was their April Fool's joke, along with the whole CEO thing.
Yeah, the Surgeon General or whatever.
Yeah, I don't even remember. Very unimportant people that have important roles in our government, but seem vastly underqualified for whatever they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we finally got a release date for the Stanley Parable.
Oh, I did not see that. What's the date?
We've been waiting for how many years?
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those
Year
things where you
after
can
year.
just play it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Release date for a final. Well, of course, the story centers around employee number 427. So, of course, it's going to be released on April 27th.
Oh, that's nice. That's actually pretty good. I'm sure that
Works.
even if it's been done for nearly a year now, that they've probably just been waiting until the next April 27th for the final release.
Probably. So some people were speculating. I remember playing that with my son like 5 years ago.
Oh, yeah, the
6
thing's
years
old
ago.
now.
And it's basically, it was built on the Portal 2 engine, right?
Yeah, Source 2.
I think.
They've been, Source 2 is the engine that they use for like Portal 2, TF2, and stuff like that.
So it's weird. It seems like you had to start over again and again and
Yeah.
go through all of these mazes and end up in the same place over and over. And it's a weird game, but apparently releasing finally
Yeah.
in April.
It was one of those things like, do we really care that it's finally releasing? Like, I like it's made by a very small team. I think it's headed by mostly one guy. There's a couple other people he knows that helps him make it, which is why it's been taking forever. But like, I don't care about the actual release dates of games that you could have been playing this whole time, right? Like, it means it's finally out of beta, technically, or early access, whatever you want to call it. But it's like, if you can buy into the game and you can play it whenever you want, does a finalized release date actually matter? Yeah, going back to the whole active development thing.
Yeah. See, now I'm looking at other stories, and I'm pretty sure they're just April Fool's jokes that are still up.
Yeah, I was trying to get through a whole bunch. It was either people talking about April Fool's jokes or fucking 800 articles still on Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Which I'm kind
something
of
about
burnt out on Elden Ring now.
a Steam Deck Plus that's really just a laptop.
Yeah.
It's like, wait
Hey,
a second.
boys and girls, do you want to play your entire full library of games on the go? Just buy a fucking gaming laptop.
Exactly. Oh, okay. So, yeah, they at least they named. I'm on GameInformer.com.
Yeah.
At least the ones that are jokes, they started with Game Infarser.
Yeah. That way you know that it's a farce. Yeah. I've got some stuff. Let me pull up something. What was I going to talk about? Oh, here's a funny thing. So, back in the day, the Clintons were two of the big politicians that were against video games in general, right? They were some of the people that were trying to push back against stuff. There's directly some of the reasons why the ESRB had to be made in the first place. But they were two of the people that called things up to trial. One of the reasons I've always disliked the Clintons. And one of the ones directly, back when Bill was president, was he directly condemned Guilty Gear as a franchise, saying that you can kill your friends guilt-free, right? And we've come full circle. Now, if you go into the figure mode, where you can look at like the character models as figures, and go into one of the backgrounds, I'll actually pull up an image of this. Where's my window capture? Yeah, if you go into the figure mode, you can see a portrait in the background. It's like you're actually in the White House or whatever. And there is a portrait of Bill Clinton in Guilty Gear, in Strive, in the new one. Yeah. So it's come full circle. I kind of as a joke, because, fuck these people that have tried to ruin video games forever.
Man, I didn't remember them specifically condemning Guilty Gear.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever heard of that game before you told me about it.
Oh, it's been around for quite some time.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was funny. A good way to kind of lead off the article section, because, you know, you remember that whole mess. Like, maybe not them condemning Guilty Gear in specifically, but you remember the whole, it started with Mortal Kombat, and it just kept going. It never stopped. Even into, like, the mid-aughts, it was still going. And then it comes back around in the 10s.
Yeah, they initially concentrated on fighting games, right?
Yeah. Well,
Like,
anything that was visceral, right, where the visuals were going to be considered influential people. So that's like why Night Trap was in there. Mortal Kombat was one of them because it was the first one to have pixelated blood show up, even before Street Fighter or anybody else tried to do something like that. There was another one that I'm forgetting at the moment, because there was like 3 games at the start. I always forget the third one. But then afterwards, after we actually got our ratings board, they didn't stop, because then they started trying to blame, and Guilty Gear ended up during this era, they were trying to blame the earliest first-person shooters for things. And we're talking about, they were trying to blame things like GoldenEye, specifically, a James Bond game, where it's like, well, is this any worse than the movie you're watching that it's based off of? And they were trying to blame Guilty Gear, things that dated back to the N64 days. And then as we go forward into Xbox, they're trying to blame the first-person shooters of that era. And even as recent as, I think, 2018, a politician was still trying to blame video games, violent video games, for the shootings and stuff that was going on. Like, it's more sparse than it used to be, but it's still there. They never really stopped doing it.
Yeah, and they just they moved over from worrying too much about violence to worrying too much about sexualized content, I guess you could say.
Depends where, right? Like, Australia specifically is super concerned about sexualized content in general, specifically when it has anything to do with minors, which is why they basically banned all anime from Australia.
Yeah.
Under their stupid lolly laws. Yeah.
But have you seen, there's actually a recent story about how, well, there's a couple actually. There's one about Final Fantasy VII Remake and how they intentionally toned down Tifa. And there are modders now, apparently, that have improved on Tifa's look. Did you see the mods?
No, I have not.
I think I can bring them up. They're fantastic.
Yeah. So, like, I don't have a problem with Tifa's model, per se. One, the games look way more realistically proportioned than they did before, right? We're limited with low polygons. The problem is less of her model, and it's more of what they did with it, right? Because she's definitely wearing some type of suppressor, some type of, like, sports bra thing, which is going to keep everything smaller as it is. How do I hide us? There we go. I'm going to make that bigger. Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
Well,
They gave her like a Lara Croft almost look right there.
Yeah, really, yeah.
Especially with the guns and everything. Yeah, Cammy. Okay, so these are all...
these are mods.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying these mods are all visually inspired by other games and stuff.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's like a Dead or Alive one right there. And that I actually think is Rumble Roses.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I don't know that this person is actually complaining.
No,
Square
I don't
Enix
think
gave, yeah. It says Square Enix gave Final Fantasy VII Remake to the PC community, and this is what they're doing.
Exactly what they should be doing. But it doesn't actually look like they've changed the model much, right? Like the actual rig underneath the clothes. These modern models, they actually do typically make the body different than the clothes so that the clothes can have unique physics to them, right? So they'll layer things on top of it. And this is what I was saying before. Tifa's model was not the problem. It was what they actually put it in was the issue.
Yeah. It does look like they enhanced certain areas, though.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that what she looks like underneath the sports bra?
I don't know. I actually haven't dissected her model. But she's definitely wearing some type of suppressor, which I'm not going to complain about too much. With the activities that she's doing, it would probably be helpful to have some type of sports bra on. Let's be real.
Well, another area, let me see if I can find it. Another area of recent, I don't know what you call it, moral panic. Has been this woman, Sam Maggs, who worked on Ratchet and Clank. Put down a whole big long Twitter.
Because I know what's her face? I can't remember her name, but the new character that she was partially responsible for designing had to be Rivet had to be remodeled and toned down because they thought she was too sexual originally. Which I saw the concept art. There was nothing sexual about the original concept art.
Well, according to this person, it was because she thought, like this one person basically was the entire impetus behind.
So that was her how she was partially responsible for the character. She forced them to change it. Got it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And she was upset that there's an IGN story about the design method of coming up with Rivet, and she wasn't mentioned.
Okay.
So she did a whole big long Twitter rant about how integral she was in ruining the character, basically.
Because her breasts were probably too big? No, I saw the thread that shows out. It wasn't even too much of the breast more than anything, even though she did have more noticeable curvature. It was her hips were huge in the by comparison in the original, which larger hips are. Yeah. If you actually look at the older concept art, she had much bigger hips than she did in the final one, which are also considered sexual because large hips are like for breeding purposes. But her curves in general were more noticeable. She had like an hourglass.
According to this Sam Maggs person, all she cared about were the titties.
Really? Oh, well, I mean, you can't even notice them. If that's the case, then she just needs to be fired because the original design didn't really have titties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, according to her, she would just randomly, in the middle of work, just yell out, "Lombax titties," because she was so upset about the Lombax titties.
But she had no titties. I saw the design. There's no tits. There's a curve. It's mostly hips. That's all she had was hips.
Yeah. Well, apparently, this woman was very
insane.
upset.
She needs to be fired.
Yeah. Well, she almost was because people basically complained and considered it like sexual harassment or something.
Yeah. It sounds
but
like
she
sexual
wasn't.
harassment.
Like, I mean,
you're in the middle of work and somebody's just yelling titties.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know what almost fired means, but she wasn't fired, unfortunately. I would have fired her and said, make the titties bigger.
Yeah.
But
I would have taken it as the other direction. If she's saying Lombax titties, like, well, there's clearly no tits here, so maybe we actually need to do something about that.
Yeah. Exactly. She clearly wants Lombax titties.
Yeah.
So, I don't understand why a company wouldn't be like, this person is a crazy person going around just shouting random shit in the middle of work. You're fired. Like, why are you here?
Yeah, I don't know.
We're going to do the exact opposite of the crazy nut job bullshit that you're wanting. But I don't understand why these companies...
To some degree, I understand taking older characters and she had too much makeup on. Now, that one, that makes sense because that original design did look like it was pretty heavy on makeup. Not saying that's a bad thing. It's just, at least if you're going to make a criticism, that one works with whatever the design was. Slightly long eyelashes. Yeah, but, men typically have longer eyelashes than women do. If you actually zoom in, that's why they have to make them look longer. I've got fucking long ass eyelashes, but they're blonde, so you can't even really tell.
Mine touch my glasses.
Yeah. But what I was saying is, I understand with characters like Tifa or whatever, where as you make the models more realistic, because we are not limited to how polygons were. Even Lara Croft to an extent, but not using the last games as an example because they didn't even bother to make her look like Lara. Tits are probably going to end up being proportionately smaller, even if they're big. Again, we have higher polygon count. They don't have to be these big blocky bulbs. But if you're working with something that's heavily cartoon, here's one I didn't understand, was Crash Bandicoot when they brought Tana back in. Because Tana basically had balloons on her chest in the original one. And they definitely shrunk them a lot. But it's not like the characters proportionately changed other than her. All of them still had the same cartoon proportions as the original game. So it's like this supposed to be, I guess, the alternate reality she came from. She just didn't have as, or maybe in some cases more friendly of puberty, because maybe those might be difficult to deal with. But puberty struck her different in that alternate universe. I don't know, but you wouldn't immediately guess that this is the same character until the game tells you. Especially because they gave her that weird undercut, side-shaved haircut because she's supposed to be a rebel. Like a lot of questionable decisions with character redesigns, I'd have to say.
Yeah. And this woman went on a rant about how, if we give her any kind of breasts, that now we have to try and explain, does this species breastfeed their young and blah, blah, blah.
You don't have to explain that.
No, you don't.
People just assume it.
Yeah.
Right? It's actually, that's
okay,
the fun thing about your community, right? People will make videos trying to explain the evolutionary line of these characters, and that just gives you free press. Like that. I saw somebody try to make a video on the evolution of Zoras, taking the little seahorse people from Skyward Sword to like, why do female Zoras have breasts? And they were trying to use like fish that have like internal feeding mechanisms and stuff as an example. It's like, dude, it's not that complicated. There's this thing called convergent evolution where things end up going to the same direction as each other for different reasons. But it's free press.
Yeah. And it's like, it's total projection. She's thinking like she's going down this weird mental rabbit hole, trying to explain the breasts to herself, and she thinks everybody else thinks the same way. Yeah. And it's like, no, nobody else cares. They just want an attractive character.
Somebody will care, but I mean, again, that's actually the part of the fandom you want to attract, are the people who want to dig way too deep into your stuff and make video essays on it because they're just giving your game more advertising.
Yeah. Yeah, they lost out on a chance for more interest in their game. That's why I don't understand why these companies don't fire these crazy people.
Also, aren't Lombax supposed to be like mammalian anyway? Wouldn't you assume there's probably some sort of breastfeeding involved, even if they don't have visible breasts?
Probably.
Dogs breastfeed. Like,
yeah, why is this a problem?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a reality that she, as a weird modern individual, doesn't want to face. That's the issue. Yeah, like you're saying, projection. It's something that is cutting away at her inside. She doesn't want to face these realities.
Yeah.
That, again, ultimately doesn't matter to a video game character. Fuck, like, nobody ever cared about Crystal from Star Fox. It's like, oh, she must be breastfeeding, or like her species or whatever. Like, nobody cared. She's just a fucking fox girl with tits. That's it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
People are fucking crazy, man. I don't know. Can we just make good artistic games? Like, what's up with that?
Here's the question. So I had to, without going into too much detail, I had to sit through a diversity, equity, and inclusion seminar for work.
Oh, yeah.
It was required. But aren't there states where that's actually illegal? Is it just Florida that passed the anti-woke bill
I think
does
it might
Texas-
just be them. I don't know of any others. I haven't heard of them.
Yeah.
We might have one. I have to go and look it up. But
So my question is, what if the company is not in Florida, but the worker lives in Florida? Could I have said, oh well, actually, it's against the law for you to require me to take this class?
yeah.
Or does the company
know.
have to be in Florida? That's the question.
Because I think for the company to operate in Florida, they have to follow that law, even digitally, right? Like that's typically how these things have happened. So maybe they'd have to, if they want to continue doing that, they have to start just like not hiring people that work in that state for remote work and stuff like that. Like it's actually going to become very complicated as these type of laws come out, where people are going to have to start working more within states that follow the same codes as them, which used to never be a problem because you only ever work locally in the state that you live in, or unless you're like on the border of a state.
And my question is, my company may or may not, I'm not sure, but we might have a contract with Florida. And the question is, would requiring this of all their employees potentially jeopardize that contract?
Oh, I have no clue. I would assume so.
I'll have to look into whether or not we have a contract with Florida.
You know, these questions would probably be better asked of a lawyer.
Yeah.
Where's Nick Ricetta when you need him?
Yeah, a lawyer is familiar with these laws, I guess.
Yeah. Or at least even generally how contracts and interstate laws tend to work. Because even if you don't work directly in Florida as a lawyer, you should at least have an idea of like, well, you know, I've had to deal with clients between states before, and this is typically how these type of things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Though, like, interstate law is kind of a practice of its own. They're like lawyers that specialize with dealing with affairs in between states. Because that starts to get into federal jurisdiction after a certain point.
Mm.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. That could jeopardize a lot. Now, I think that it's just gonna be a fine, right? That's mostly all it's gonna be to a company is a suit, then a fine, and then they're told don't do it again.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know what the... but I mean, if it meant potentially losing a contract with that entire state,
Yeah,
that could be more serious.
could be.
It is a little weird. I'm looking at Rivet. I guess the only way you can tell that she's even a girl is like her eyebrows are thinner
Yeah.
and her jowls are not quite as...
Yeah, she has a her features in general are a bit softer by comparison.
a bit just generally thinner. She needs titties.
Yeah. Well, it's like Joshua brought up. He heard in the original games, female lombaxes aren't even supposed to have tails. So maybe that's something they should have worried more about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Now I'm going to go down a whole rabbit hole of...
A whole rabbit hole. A lombax hole.
a whole, yeah. Oops, I misspelled lombax. Oh yeah, there's some nice fan art.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Well, it's
Seems
like...
to fix the problem.
Much like I was saying about that cheetah character that was in the trailer for Kirby, the day that character was announced, Rivet, there was already Rule 34. Like that, like within hours of that, her trailer going up.
Of who?
Of Rivet. Well, like within hours of her being announced as a character, Rule 34 of Rivet went up. Like, those people were fast as fuck. So removing tits really didn't change much there.
Yeah, I'm not really interested in that, but just some nice, clothed fan art.
This is going to make Marsupial become a furry. Well, first off, his avatar is already a wombat?
A wallaby.
Wallaby. It was a wallaby. Why did I say wombat? I was mixing it with lombax. Wallaby. And if anything, it'd probably be more your girlfriend that turns you into a furry.
I guess.
Wasn't she like... Well, I know she's not a furry, but wasn't she like at one point in time talking about owning a fursuit or something for laughs? You were talking about something like that, or you were gonna buy her something.
Yeah, no, she's never talked about that.
Oh, okay. No, you mentioned something about buying like.
Maybe I did.
Yeah.
Maybe I did.
Yeah. It was I don't know, maybe a year ago we were talking about it.
Maybe.
I don't remember the exact circumstances.
I'm pretty sure she would not agree to that.
Yeah. Furries are all well accepted, unlike lolicons for some reason. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. I think the stigma to both of them might be pretty close. I wouldn't say exactly equal, but pretty close.
I would sooner accept furries, I think, because they're a bit more, I don't know what you call it, fantasy based. They're not as close.
Yeah.
They're not, they're not a little too close to reality. That's the problem.
Yeah, though there is a big problem with an overlap of furries and bestiality and stuff, as expected. But that's the problem with lolicon. I think actually we had a whole episode on this, so I'm not gonna retread it. But there's like, especially when you're dealing with Japan, there's a big issue with what that word means in different contexts, right? Mm-hmm. And to be fair, a lot of what lolicon is in the modern day is not anywhere near as bad as modern like internet age play stuff, which I think is a bigger focus. That if people want ire towards anything, it should be age play. I think age play promotes more of the things that people are afraid of than drawings of young-looking people. But you know what? That's neither here nor there. That's not a topic we were planning to talk about today. Instead, Bungie sues over Destiny 2 YouTube video takedowns that it didn't request.
Who are they suing?
I'm looking. It had the thing. I forgot. I pulled up all these articles earlier, so I don't remember every detail. But it's something about the actual like takedown bots and stuff. They explained that there are fake Google accounts impersonating Bungie, with bad actors abusing YouTube's copyright system to take down high-profile creators and the studio. So I think they're suing these individuals that they've identified and the bots that they're using. But Bungie doesn't really issue takedown requests. They're one of those companies that kind of realizes, hey, this is good advertisement for our game. They're actually partnered directly with a lot of big Destiny 2 like streamers and content creators. And it's kind of becoming a pretty big lawsuit at this point. And it's a part of the system YouTube is being brought into it, because they added that YouTube's system was easy to manipulate and challenging to contest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen just in recent weeks, people's, well, not a lot of it around YouTube, but a lot of systems seem to be easy to manipulate. Seen some Patreon's been going through a new purge.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately. And I know I've seen an Indiegogo creator have his entire account wiped out over false flags.
Yeah.
But yeah, YouTube's been a problem for years.
And it's not even just YouTube. It's the nature of the DMCA, which, to be honest, the DMCA on the whole is a good thing. I think too many people who get hit with bad parts of it think that the Digital Millennium Copyright Act is bad just across the board. But it actually gives pretty good protections, especially, what's that? The one, it's 200 or something. The clause. I can't remember the name of it, but it's the one that everybody's always talking about. The clause that provides platforms protections that publishers wouldn't have.
Oh, right. Section 300?
Yeah.
Is that
It's section something, but it's one of the clauses. I can't never remember the number for it. But it's one everybody talks about. It's actually a good clause in the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. But the issue is the way it's handled, right? Because
230.
230, that's it. I knew there was a 200 something. Section 230. The idea of the act is good. It has not been renewed properly since it came out, right? Because it was made back when the internet was still the things that we were talking about Dorsey earlier with like IRCs, and it was mostly forums and Usenet and stuff like that. Since then, it needed to be updated, I think, like every 8 years or something. And they just haven't. They've just renewed it. And a lot of the shit is mostly the same as it was back then. Because it's a bunch of old people who have no idea how the internet actually works. And the nature of Section 230, which is your protection, my protection, technically, YouTube's protection, also causes the DMCA takedown situation to be very easily manipulated, because it is weighted on the side of the actual creator of the content, so they can put these bots out, and it's not a balance trying to protect both parties, as any law is supposed to be. Any law that is supposed to protect you from somebody else is supposed to also equally protect that person from you. That's why the legal system is there. And I do think that with some people who know more about this maybe being consulted, that they do need to redraft a lot of the DMCA.
Well, now Section 230 is in the Federal Communications Decency Act. So I'm not entirely sure how that
it's
interacts
related
with
to
DMCA.
the Copyright Act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure. I mean, I think it's because there's ambiguity.
Yeah.
That it allows YouTube to enforce it in a very strange way. Like, to me, when somebody makes a claim, I don't think it should automatically assume that the claim is correct, which it does now. It should inform the creator that's being hit, and they should have the chance. They should have a certain amount of time to dispute it before their channel gets, hit with a strike or taken down or whatever.
Yeah.
And instead, they just assume that the DMCA claim is correct and leave the proof is now up to the.
Yeah, so they kind of treat it the
getting
opposite of the legal system, right? You're guilty until proven innocent, not the other way around. But the whole purpose to this is basically to avoid the situation that YouTube has ended itself into right here, right? The whole purpose is, well, if we just take it down immediately and then you challenge it, then we can avoid any, like a civil case coming up in this case, because anything dealing with copyright until you actually start going into the criminal section of stealing rights is a civil case, right? So they're trying to avoid civil cases, and things only come up once they become criminal. But it leads them into ending up in these. Actually, this is a criminal case. This is identity impersonation. This is stealing revenue through that same falsehood and stuff like that. This right here would be at the criminal level.
Yeah.
And they basically push themselves into this situation by having a really faulty system that was loosely built to avoid even going in this direction in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
When really,
I don't know.
If they acted just as a platform and they used all the provisions eligible for them and just gave anybody anything they needed in discovery, then everything could just go into criminal cases and civil cases between the individual parties involved, right?
Yeah. But it's what's terrible is that they don't require any proof of ownership of a copyright.
Yeah.
They don't require any proof of identity. So like you said, someone can come in and impersonate Bungie and start issuing takedowns. And it's like, they don't require any proof at all.
Nope.
It's ridiculous.
Which is funny too, because a lot of the, like, Bungie has a verified user, right? Like, you go on to YouTube and there's certain users with checks next to their names. So Bungie's channel would have that check if it were to comment anywhere. And the people impersonating them clearly don't have verified accounts in that way, but they can still abuse this system because of the way it's set up.
Yeah, I mean, I get copyright claims basically based just content ID claims for some music, and half the time it's somebody else. It's not even like if it's gameplay, I have it out. Yeah. Basically, I say it's gameplay and I dispute it, and it disappears, within 30 days. But half the time, whoever's claiming it isn't even the actual copyright owner.
Yeah, it's some third party on their behalf, and those are the people they're really impersonating, right? That's what I said. Most of these third party companies that have these content ID bots that just send it through the system don't have verified users, right? Like they have to have a YouTube user to send it, but it'll be like I'm trying to remember one of the things, but it'll be like Centurion Enterprise or some bullshit like that, and they're a third-party company that flags things on behalf of several different like companies and users that work with them. We've had a lot of problems with that in the past because these things are too good at their job, where they're doing things they shouldn't be doing, and there have been flags on Square's own channel of their own stuff before. Sony had the same problem too. There have been flags, like in this case, on people's partnered channels where they're partnered with the company that owns the thing and they have the license to do it, but they get flagged anyway when really you should whitelist them in the bot system. And there are even problems where individuals, very small individuals, have had their own content flagged by themselves because of these things. Individual users who make music have had their own music flagged. And part of it is even YouTube's topic system, where, if you're a music creator and your music ends up in the like blank dash topic, like your name in the topic, you don't get paid for that, like at all. If there's an ad that plays on or whatever, you don't receive any of the revenue on there. And there's like these bots that just scrawl it and submit it to YouTube, which I think is fucked up. I have a buddy, he's been on this channel, Verbank. He has music on YouTube under a topic, and he won't ever see any revenue off of those songs, ever. But because those topic things are there, bots on your behalf, even if you don't work for them, may even flag your channel for uploading music that's already in a topic.
Yeah. I mean, I got, there was a discussion on Twitter with Concerned Ape about the music from Stardew Valley.
Yeah.
And he said specifically, I don't have it copyrighted or anything like that. And he's like, obviously if a company wanted to use it for something, I would prefer to have a conversation about that. But if somebody wants to just use it, some non-corporate entity just wants to use it in their YouTube videos or whatever, he's like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
No problem. So I did, and it got hit with a copyright claim. And I'm like, who's out there content IDing this music?
Yeah, because the owner wouldn't.
Yeah. So I'm like, I don't understand. Like, who is it that seems to be grabbing this music and setting up a content ID, without the permission of the actual owner? It's crazy.
The whole system is set up for abuse. That's it. And it's set up for abuse because they're trying to distance themselves from any legal action. But I think the act of trying to distance themselves is going to end up in a huge class action problem eventually.
Yeah. And what's funny is there was a recent video where MatPat from, Game Theorists was saying that Twitch needs to update their system to be more like YouTube's.
No.
And I mean,
Twitch is pretty bad. Don't get me wrong, but...
But no, it's not, though, because they do not preemptively strike you or claim you or whatever for using copyrighted stuff. They wait.
They have issues, but they're not YouTube issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
they follow the law, which says
Mm-hmm.
basically they have to wait until somebody makes an actual claim.
Yeah, they have made it very easy for the claims to just destroy channels, though. Like there have been people who were totally within the right of fair use that have lost their channels for it. So it's not that their
Sure.
system is without issue, but it's nowhere close to YouTube issue. Right? YouTube is just horrible the way it is. You don't want them moving in that direction. You want them moving in the other direction.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, Twitch even, is basically saying, don't let your VODs or if you're worried about it,
Yeah.
delete your VODs, because once it's gone, then it can't be claimed. But
Oh yeah, I don't archive any of the streams on Twitch for this channel, and it's mostly because we're using things that are within fair use. But even with remixes and stuff like that, sometimes it gets a little touchy. I'm not leaving any of that stuff up. You guys can watch it on YouTube, where at worst we're just not getting monetized, like we are anyway. Or you can listen to it on any of the places where we host the audio version indefinitely. We don't really need VODs of the show up on Twitch. You can watch it live if you prefer Twitch.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Joshua Hughes
Oh.
is saying, basically if someone does a remix, then they're claiming the original music as their own.
Yeah, a couple people have done that. It's pretty messed up. Especially because remixes are supposed to be in that kind of Creative Commons area anyway, where you were taking somebody else's thing in fair use, so you're kind of agreeing not to make money off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then people just go and they try to find a way of making money off of it by content IDing people's stuff.
Yeah. There, I just got paid, so I donated to
I see, yeah.
the show.
We're,
Got paid on Friday.
Oh, nice. So that's a good day to get paid, because then you have like the weekend to look forward to.
Yeah.
It was I knew a lot of people, even my dad growing up, he got paid on Tuesday, which is fine for us because that became pizza night. But it's such a weird time to get paid. Because you're like, oh, I mean, if it was Monday, then I can just get all the bills done at the beginning of the week. If it was like Friday, then we have the weekend to look forward to. But like in between, like Tuesday, that's just a weird hump days next. Like what are you gonna do?
Well, I got paid all over the place. I got paid on the 15th and the 1st.
Yeah, you have a fixed schedule of a day of the month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I got paid on the 31st. I don't know. Something like that.
Well, I mean, if it was Friday and today's Sunday, then you would have got paid on the 1st. Because it's the 3rd right now.
But I don't remember if I got paid on Friday or Thursday. But anyway,
Okay. Yeah.
thought I'd donate to the show since we're starting off a new month.
We are starting a new month, which puts it at 40% of what we need for the month.
Yeah.
And if anybody else wants to donate, they can go to streamlabs.com/vomitorium live to help the show out. It really does help people. But in the meantime, what else did we have? Did you have anything?
That was a good segue.
Yeah.
Good segue towards, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Well, I do have other
seen-
things. I'm just asking if you have anything.
Well, there's always Elden Ring news. A few different things on Elden Ring. Have you seen the Tekken 7 mod?
No,
It turns all the characters into Elden Ring characters.
I have not.
It's amazing. It looks unbelievably good.
Hmm.
It basically turns Tekken 7 into Elden Ring Mortal Kombat kind of thing.
Mm-mm. Well, there are a lot of characters with roles in Tekken, so I can see why people would want that.
And it's also a Bandai Namco title.
Yeah.
but apparently it's so well made that the director of Tekken has said, I don't quite understand. The director of Tekken is Katsuhiro Harada,
Yeah.
and he tweeted, I don't even understand. He says, I'm sure Elden is a Bandai Namco funded title, and I was the production general manager in charge of Elden, so it's not irrelevant. It's ridiculously well made mod, but please stop it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well,
I don't know what that means.
He has to ask them to stop, right? Because Namco kind of has like this soft foot touch when it comes to mods of like, please don't mod our game, but if you're going to do it out of sight.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's probably why he made that comment is like, yeah, all this stuff works together within the same company. I was involved, but please, you don't show us your mods. Don't mod our game, like.
Yeah.
Especially the game gives you so much for customization of your characters and stuff anyway that they just don't like mods.
I imagine he's basically saying, please don't get the attention of our legal department because I have no control over them and they're gonna be mad.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also a story about a guy who apparently beat Elden Ring without ever attacking.
Pacifist run. Nice.
Yeah, although he had to defeat things, he just used summon spirits. So his own character didn't actually attack, but he did have to attack someone. Yeah. So basically, I didn't even realize that you could heal summon spirits, but apparently you can. So it was basically him summoning spirits and then healing them.
He's basically playing Pokemon.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could call that a pacifist run, but
no. It's an evoker run.
Yeah, there you go.
Path of the Summoner. Let's go.
Because you can't beat the game without defeating things, right? So
well, probably not without like clipping through a wall or something like that. Like there's probably something you could do to force the end state.
Yeah. But anyway, there is what they're calling a pacifist run on YouTube.
That's more like the general or commander run. Like, I'm not gonna fight myself. I'm just gonna tell you what to do.
Yeah, it's by Iron Pineapple. In case anyone wants to look it up.
Iron Pineapple.
Iron Pineapple.
I love internet names.
Defeated Elden Ring without throwing a single punch.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Apparently it's doable, but it takes a lot of creativity and a lot of faith points.
Yeah.
Although, how do you defeat creatures to get the runes to raise your faith? I don't know. He did it somehow.
You did it. I don't know how much I care about how the process works. It's kind of cool that he did it. Like, I'll definitely say that. Like, I do enjoy when people find like non-standard ways of beating the game, especially that's a type of game where I don't even know if anything counts as non-standard. They kind of want you to try to figure out other ways of going about things, but the most standard way of playing Dark Souls games is dodging and beating the shit out of anything you see with your own hands, like with a club or a sword or something. Yeah.
Those are the two most interesting Elden Ring stories I could find.
Yeah, well, a more interesting story, in some degree, from a different company, is that Capcom is actually raising the rate of their workers, basically across the board by 30%, which is a pretty good increase considering how inflation is affecting just about everyone in the world after those lockdowns from a couple years ago to, in some places, still right now. And a lot of people thought it was a joke because the pump was supposed to start April 1st. And they're like, haha, April Fools, you're all getting a raise. But no, everybody is getting a raise because that's when they are starting their turnover for the fiscal year is April 1st. It just happens to line up right there. And it's basically every single department, as I'm reading through. They have several different ones listed, but it's kind of everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also reorganizing its human resources departments on top of that. And I don't know if that's a good thing because they are collapsing some things, adding more, and they've got like 4 different types of departments now. And I think a big problem with a lot of big companies is how their human resources work, because HR is what leads to most of the problems we see, even though it is necessary to have some form of human resource when you're working in a big corporation. It's the middleman between the employee and the employer.
Now, I'm guessing what happened here. I don't think this was just like out of the blue,
no.
out of the kindness of their hearts. I'm guessing they had some consultant or some, they basically did an audit and figured out, our pay across the board is too low compared to the industry, and they're like, we're going to have too much turnover going forward. And so they just decided to sort of equalize, or they realized they just haven't been keeping up with the industry.
But it's more likely that this was driven by something that already happened. Because during the pandemic, there was something called the Great Resignation that was happening. So this is actually probably more of a way of improving and retaining the existing talent that stayed amid that resignation, and to possibly get new hires in, right? Because in general, they seem to be on parity with other companies, and you might see other companies start to do this too. But the pandemic caused a lot of people to just leave these entertainment industries and not come back because it just wasn't worth it. A lot of them couldn't work at home anyway, in Japan specifically, right? So they were trying to find other forms of employment, maybe things that paid better. So I think this is less of a consultant giving them a tactic in advance of something happening and more of a response to something that already happened.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
If they lost a lot of people and they're like, well, we don't want to lose any more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could see that.
It's probably also why, like, they say a high number of high-profile games have been announced earlier than expected. Because if they have these big projects that they're hiring on, it's easier to get new people in.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to, I'd say the best metric for how, to me, the best metric for how a company values its employees is the pay rate.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, you can say all you like, all day long about how, culture or, encouraging work-life balance and blah, 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 diversity, equity, inclusion. But the bottom line is, how much do you pay people?
Oh, yeah. Well, the best way to encourage a good culture at your business is that everybody is being paid appropriately for what they're doing.
Yeah. Frankly, I think that's
raises.
Yeah. Frankly, I think that's why, especially my department and my company really doesn't have any problems. We really don't have any interpersonal problems. We don't have, everyone's a professional because we're all paid what we're worth and we're all happy with what we're paid.
Yeah.
And it's like, you'd be amazed at how much that eliminates problems,
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like, hey, I got a good thing going here. I don't want to rock the boat. and, complain about some stupid little thing. I'd rather just get my job, get my work done, and get paid.
Yeah. Plus, like,
So,
on top of this, it seems despite people living, because most of Capcom's projects were finished going into the pandemic, they're actually currently doing great on revenue and profit. So if there's any time to try to make up for a major loss, right, or that will probably hit you in the future, you do it now while you've got the extra revenue, right, to spare.
yeah.
Like they're in a good position to be doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
I hope other companies catch on pretty quick if they're going to be in similar situations, because their Great Resignation affected a lot of video game companies, not just Capcom. So
I mean, you just know crappy companies like Activision Blizzard are probably way, way below
Oh yeah,
the standard, in the industry. And because they're like, at least in the past, they've counted on people being like, ooh, I would give anything to work at Blizzard. I'd work for Blizzard for free, stuff like that. And it's like, they take advantage of that. And then they end up with all these low paid, people who are incompetent. And then they end up either doing something to the other employees or claiming something was done to them.
yeah.
All this bullshit that happens. And it's like, you didn't hire professionals. You just hired the cheapest people you could find. So,
Well, it's like the same thing with the comics industry and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Where instead of hiring the best professionals, they were scouting Tumblr for artists and stuff. And there's like, hey, look at this cheap person who would do anything to work in the comic industry. You can get those same people in the video game industry. And I think people don't understand that's kind of part of why we're getting all the problems that we're seeing in all of these entertainment industries. How cheap can we get our new wave of people?
yeah. Yeah, I sometimes wonder, these gigantic AAA titles that have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people working on them.
Yeah.
Like, could they get it done with fewer people if they were just better paid, more, people who could, do the work better, faster? I don't know.
Possibly.
It's impossible.
So, with the exclusion of Breath of the Wild's credits being a mile long, which is one of the first games I've seen a Nintendo game have credits that long, Nintendo's departments tend to be smaller than most other AAA departments. They tend to work with a more tight-knit and higher quality employment, right? Like the people underneath them. So, but it's very possible, even if we have to lose a little bit of like graphic fidelity, because part of these, the reason some games can look as nice as they are is because they just have a bunch of basically monkeys, like low paid workers that are just chipping away at textures for like a month on end or so, right? And it's like, if we have 100 people chipping away at textures, between all of them we'll have some really nice textures for the game. While there's really maybe like 2 or 3 engineers that are actually working on making sure the system can use the textures well, because what you need in different departments is never equal. But if we're willing to just have nicer games in general, where you focus your team on more important stuff, maybe you see more textures being repeated, maybe some of them aren't quite as nice. Yeah, I would probably tend to agree that we could have nicer games for cheaper.
Like, you'd think you could find somebody who could basically do the work of 3 or 4 different people.
Yeah,
if they're good at what they do.
Yeah. Well, so again, that will come with the trade-off, because why I bring up texture specifically is there's certain things that it doesn't matter how good you are at it, there's only so much time in the day, right?
Yeah.
So if we do that, I think in general we would have better games. There are just specific assets that would be trade-offs that leave because of that. But honestly, I'm not a guy who really cares that much about graphics. If the textures are just not quite where they were, I would actually sleep very happy at night, just knowing that the game I'm playing is better.
Yeah. Well, you brought up an interesting an interesting company
Yeah.
in Nintendo, and that's a good segue to another story that
What you got?
Breath of the Wild 2 has been delayed until spring 2023.
Now, if it gets delayed anymore, I'm going to be upset because right now it's kind of sitting where I said it was going to be.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I want to be right. So I hope it really comes out in 2023. I care about being right more than anything in this case at this point.
Well, it reminds me of when Animal Crossing was delayed from, at the very end, Animal Crossing was delayed from, I think, fall of whatever the year before it came out to the following spring. So it was delayed by like 6 months. And then it came out. So
And they usually come out in spring as well. And I don't know if it's just because it's a good time for Animal Crossing or if Animal Crossing always gets delayed. I remember that happened with New Leaf. It was supposed to come out in fall, or at least the pre-orders and stuff said it was going to come out in fall. But then it came out in spring. Personally, I think New Horizons probably should have been delayed even further, but it coming out when it did was the perfect timing for Nintendo, especially with the lockdowns and stuff happening for a lot of places. Animal Crossing being a good escape for people. It made a lot of money, maybe even more than it would have if it came out at any other time.
wasn't it like the biggest game of 2020?
Oh yeah,
crazy.
It was insane. It's one of their better sellings. Not as good as Mario Kart, which Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is currently, I think, the best-selling Mario-related title, maybe. I don't know. It's really close. The original Mario game and 3 have been sold a lot. But it's definitely the best-selling Switch game, for sure, and the best in its franchise when it comes to selling. It's crazy how many copies of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe have been sold.
It's like Grand Theft Auto 5, keeps selling month after month after month. And I'm like, who doesn't have these games already? Why are people still buying them?
Yeah, like Super Smash Brothers, I get why people are still buying it. Because every time you have a tournament, people have to set up a Switch with its own copy of the game and stuff like that. And they have somebody turn World of Light on super easy journalist mode so they can grind through and unlock all the characters real quick. But in general, actually, I think it might even be easier now with cloud saves, so you could just copy somebody's file over and over. But they used to have to grind it by hand. In general, for a game like Mario Kart, you don't need multiple copies of the game, right? Who doesn't own it? Same with Animal Crossing. Who's interested in Animal Crossing doesn't already own Animal Crossing at this point?
No. So what the fuck is taking so long with Breath of the Wild 2? Did you see the latest screenshots?
Yeah, I saw a couple of them.
Have you seen the Master Sword?
Yeah, with it looks all crusty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks all broken. In fact, I noticed that the way it's all jagged. What?
I said poor Fee.
Poor Fee, yeah.
Yeah.
The way it's all jagged, it looks like the magic sword from Zelda 1.
Yeah, a little.
I wonder if they did that on purpose. They made it kind of look jagged and short because it looks like it's been chopped off and all rusted away or something. So,
yeah,
interesting.
Ever since they introduced that Fee is kind of like the spirit of the Master Sword itself, it's kind of left some pretty horrifying implications for the series if you actually like that character. Anytime the sword gets destroyed or anything, or is just dormant for long periods of time, that directly affects that character. That means Fee's in some type of coma, or part of Fee was destroyed, or also in maybe a positive way, when Zelda says that the sword was talking to her in the memory in Breath of the Wild, that actually it's oh, well, that's Fee talking directly to Zelda. That there's a character that exists in there. So it's kind of cool, but also kind of horrifying. It's this is just the life of a sword.
Well, but I mean, number one, Fee is a kind of like a computer,
Yes, in a way.
and
But she does have a personality. It's a bare one, but she has one.
But she's basically dormant.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like I don't think she experiences the passage of time.
I don't know.
I think
maybe.
I think when the Master Sword is dormant, I think she's just in a coma, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't
Isn't
think
that
she
cute?
experiences that, but like anything that happens in between that, when it's not like in its pedestal or wherever it belongs, I have a suspicion that she does experience the passage of time in that case.
Do you think she feels pain when the sword gets damaged?
I don't know. Like it's an interesting thing to contemplate.
Yeah.
Especially because like Skyward Sword actually does a pretty decent job that as kind of dead and computerized as she feels at certain points when she's talking to you, at somewhat feeling sympathy for this character when she talks to Link. Like, because they paint her in a very somber way.
Yeah. I always thought it was a little bit weird. Like, it seemed like Girahim was clearly also a sword,
Yes.
but like, they didn't always treat him like that. Like, at the end of Skyward Sword, like the sword comes out of his chest.
Yeah.
Right? And then in which is weird, you'd think he'd just like turn
Become a
into
sword.
the sword.
Yeah.
But then also, I mean, I guess it's not canon, but in Hyrule Warriors, he's there alongside Ganondorf with the swords that he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's never
It's
made
very
sense.
weird with him.
But I guess that's not canon, so never mind.
Yeah, well, even in the game, they were trying to treat him somewhat like he's supposed to be Demise's weapon.
Yeah.
And that he has a life of his own while Demise is in that kind of imprisoned state. So he's like supposed to be the spirit of the sword, but while the sword isn't in Demise's hand, he can have like a corporeal form, like he incorporates himself. That's weird. But part of it's because they also basically wanted him to be a Ganon.
Yeah.
Right? Which even Ganondorf is kind of like a reprise of a Ganon. It's just that he becomes Ganon instead of just being the forebearer that resummons him. But they've been trying to bring that character back from A Link to the Past over and over again. Because for the most part, most Zelda games are just a remake of A Link to the Past.
Yeah.
1 and 2 were different games. Breath of the Wild was more of a remake of 1, which is somewhat a breath of fresh air in that case. But most games have either been a sequel to something that was a remake of A Link to the Past or kind of a remake to A Link to the Past. Ocarina of Time was. Twilight Princess was kind of a remake to A Link to the Past because it was also in itself kind of a remake to Ocarina of Time. Wind Waker, mostly original. There was some Ocarina of Time-ish stuff in there where there's kind of like, here's the pre-dungeons, here's the turn of events, here's the actual dungeons. But there really weren't too many dungeons in Wind Waker. Wind Waker was more of an exploratory game, so I kind of give it a pass on there. Skyward Sword is also somewhat trying to retap Ocarina of Time, which means it's also somewhat trying to retap A Link to the Past. And that's just how most Zelda games are in that case. It's like, Link to the Past, really good formula. Let's do it again.
Yeah. But I wonder if, what would be cool is if Breath of the Wild 2 ends up basically being like a remake of The Adventure of Link.
That's what I was hoping for. I think that's what most people were hoping for, with the first one being a remake of a Hyrule Fantasy, as they called the original Legend of Zelda in Japan.
Yeah.
Even the poster, if you actually read the Japanese, underneath Legend of Zelda and Breath of the Wild, it actually had the words "A Hyrule Fantasy" on the poster as just a throwback. And it would be really cool if it was Link's Adventure.
Yeah, wouldn't that be cool if it was, if there were there 6 palaces? Like maybe there'll be 6 palaces with 6 bosses, and
that kind of line up
7.
with the sages that came later in.
Yeah. That would be fantastic if it was like essentially a remake.
Because
And that
like
kind of
Ocarina of Time was kind of throwing back to all three of the console Zeldas that happened before it. Because even like all the sages are named after towns in Zelda 2.
yeah. But it makes me wonder, like the fact that it's taking longer to build Breath of the Wild 2 than it took to build the first one, and they already had the physics engine all worked out. I mean, unless they're adding more to it.
Clearly, it's because they had to carve out all these underground dungeons if they're going to make it like Zelda 2.
I guess. Or are they? Is it expand? Is it because in Zelda 2, it takes place in Hyrule plus there's a second continent.
Yeah.
So my question is it going to be, you're going to have Hyrule, but there's going to be a whole separate fucking continent.
I wouldn't complain, but that would be such a big game.
It would be huge.
Yeah.
I'd love it, but it would explain, because I mean, they haven't shown anything.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
so
they've shown the
stuff
stuff in the sky.
Maybe the stuff in the sky is the other continent in this case. What if it's been fragmented, right? And that's actually part of the game,
I'm willing to bet that there's stuff in the sky and stuff underground, plus a whole other continent. I mean,
I would like that.
To me,
I don't know if even the amount of time they've been taking, if that's gonna fit in there. I mean, they could. Again, they do have a map to already work with, even if they're carving out underground stuff in replacement of the shrines. But
at the end of the day, it's been it'll be 6 years.
Yeah.
6 full years. It's like, what the hell else have they done? I don't know. I think to me, it's got to be humongous. I mean, just absolutely huge to explain why it took 6 years.
I would hope so.
I guess we'll see.
I'm not saying I have a lot of hope, but I would hope so.
Yeah. Because I'm willing to bet. I'm really willing to bet that they have shown us 0.001% of the new stuff. I mean,
well, they keep showing this almost deceased body of Ganondorf, right?
Yeah.
Right. So what I would like is going with that Zelda 2 type thing is if Ganondorf wasn't even the boss, right?
Yeah.
If you go up to his body or whatever, and out of it comes a shadow that is like Shadow Link, like Dark Link, right? That would be cool, especially because Dark Link wasn't even in Breath of the Wild. I understand there's really no way of working it other than there's an outfit that kind of turns you into Dark Link, going with the Twilight Princess version of it. But as an actual character, Dark Link wasn't in Breath of the Wild, and it makes sense being a remake of Zelda 1. So if we're gonna sequel Breath of the Wild directly, let's make it. Sorry, somebody walked in for a second. If you're gonna remake Zelda, a sequel to Zelda 1, then it should just be Zelda 2, and let's have a Dark Link be the final boss.
Yeah, plus the whole, if you die in Zelda 2, Ganon gets revived. So it could be that, the monsters are trying to kill Link to use his blood or whatever to revive Ganon.
Maybe. Or maybe there's an implied time limit, right? You have to stop Ganon before he gets revived. So if Link dies, well, clearly there's nobody there to stop him. Which I think would work with the way the first game did too, because Zelda was the one who was holding Ganon off. So there was this implied time limit as well.
Yeah. Is there going to be a Thunderbird in this one, just like there was in Zelda 2?
Yeah, we need a rock.
You have to defeat.
We need a rock. That's what we need.
Well, and the other question,
Link needs to jump.
What's that?
We need a Rock's Feather. Link. I mean, there was jumping, right? The little hop that he could do. But Link needs to get a Rock's Feather and really jump in this game.
Well, in Zelda 2, there was magic. There was magic, and there was shield magic, and
turn into a fairy. Yeah.
Who knows?
Can you imagine
Maybe he'll get
end game turning yourself into a fairy and just flying around all of Hyrule and see it from an overview?
That'd be pretty awesome. That could be the replacement to Rivali's Gale or whatever.
Yeah.
Who knows? Man, that would be awesome if it was Yeah, a bunch of, they basically brought back dungeons in the form of 6 or 7 palaces.
Oh yeah, I
That'd be
miss
amazing.
dungeons because we got even the dungeons we got, the 4 beasts, really weren't much. They were very
Yeah.
quick to get through. They were more boss fights than anything.
I mean, the shrines were more like sections of a dungeon. Right?
Yeah, if you like
shrines
combined a
were
bunch
like-
of shrines together,
Yeah.
you
Yeah, the divine beasts were barely a dungeon. I mean, they're barely more complex than the shrines.
yeah, there was a couple shrines that were almost as complex. The divine beasts were like putting 3 or 4 shrines together. Like they would,
Yeah.
you have to unlock this, unlock this, unlock this, and then there's a boss.
Yeah, yeah.
The Eventide Island felt more like a shrine or like an actual dungeon than frickin' any of the beasts did. There was no boss in it, but like the fact that you went into hard mode by having all of your stuff removed and having to like solve this puzzle of how do I get this shit where it goes without dying.
Yeah. Yeah, I had trouble with Eventide in hero mode, definitely.
I probably wouldn't, but I don't fight anybody in it. Like I sneak to get the one from the Hinox and stuff, and the closest I do to fighting is there's a lot of things that you can magnetically lift on the island, and I took like the Moblin, and I just took the platform and I pushed him off into the water.
Oh.
It's like I'm not fighting any of these guys. Screw that. They give me sticks. I'm gonna fight these guys with sticks and then steal one of their weapons and stuff. No. They're just going in the water.
Yeah.
Off the cliff, in the water. There you go.
Nice. I still think to this day I've not beaten the Trial of the Sword in hard mode. So I should get to it before
To be fair, that the trial is designed very stupidly. Of all things, like it's cool. It should have been in the game by default. The only things that felt like it should have been DLC is the revisiting of the Champions trials. That actually feels like post game stuff. The Trial of the Sword felt like it should have just been in the game when you got it, especially for what it gives you. But they're really stupid dungeons. They're kind of like shrine sections that were slapped together last minute. Like, well, here's a nifty little trial for you. Have fun with this challenge that wasn't thought out very well. Yeah. Or what's what's actually a fun thing? It's stupidly hard. It is also not designed well, but it's fun because it's not designed well. Is the one hit thing. I can't remember the name of it, but the little wand that destroys things in one hit, and you're basically the obliterator. Yeah, and you're basically it's like Devil May Cry Heaven on Hell mode, where for that trial you die in one hit, but so does like everything you're fighting.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of those shrines are really annoying.
Yeah.
Where there's a lot of spikes, and if you touch a spike, you die.
Dead, yeah.
So
feels like you're playing I Want to Be the Guy. You ever play I Want to Be the Guy?
No.
Okay, there's this game called I Want to Be the Guy, the movie, the game, which we're at the end, so it'll be the last thing we talk about. And it was this old Flash game on the internet, and it was like one of those stupidly hard platformers with spikes everywhere, and you had like a double jump or whatever, and you had to try to get through these weird spike mazes, and if you touched any of the non-platforms, it's just instant death. Really hard game. There's actually one of the visitor levels in Super Meat Boy for one of the bonus characters is an I Want to Be the Guy, the movie, the game level, and if you beat the 3 stages, you unlock the guy as a character. And that's what it reminds me of playing that section. Is like, I literally cannot fuck up for a moment or it's instantly over.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll find out, I guess, in another year.
Yeah.
This damn game comes out.
Hopefully.
Who knows? Hopefully.
I'm not going to hold my breath. But yeah. Anyway, thank you all for watching. This has been the show. If you enjoy it, please share it with somebody else you might like. And if you really enjoy the show, consider giving a donation to streamlabs.com/Vomitorium Live. It really helps the show out. Mean our monthly hosting fees, and that's less money I have to throw into it from other sources. So, see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.
destroyers' worlds.